Inside each of our chests beats a very important organ. And as most of us know, heart disease kills more individuals than any other disease, and actually the top, I think, 3 or 4 diseases combined. So it's very important for us to have a heart-healthy diet. Whether or not we've had any symptoms in the past, heart-healthy cooking can help us have a lifestyle that we love and keep us out on the golf course or on the hiking trails, wherever we want to be, to have the maximum enjoyable lifestyle that we can have. So today on Intermountain Healthcare's Healing for Life cooking program, we are cooking heart healthy with Christie Benton, our wonderful dietitian from Dixie Regional Medical Center, and I'm Terri Draper, your host of Healing for Life. We also today, for the very first time, have a live audience of volunteers who have very graciously consented to come and listen to the program, to give questions as we're cooking, so that you and I and those who are watching in the audience here can learn the most we can possibly learn from the entrees that we are about to make and the side dish that we're about to make. So I'm so excited to welcome you here to this live program. And Christie, before we get busy here, Is there anything we need to know?
Yeah, I think so. We're doing today, we're going to do an entree. We've got a nice chicken breast over here we're going to be using. Of course, chicken being the lean meat of choice for so many folks these days. And the other thing we're going to complement this with is a squash medley. So we've got at least a vegetable group going. We've got a good source of protein. And of course, the overriding premise here is this is cardiovascular friendly. This is going to be low fat, as much as we can make it, and certainly low sodium. And we'll talk a little bit later about why that sodium is getting so much attention these days. So we're just going to get started. We've got our pots and pans ready to rock and roll here. Now is the chicken. Now I've already taken and pounded out chicken breasts. These were boneless, skinless chicken breasts. Took them between the plastic wrap and literally smashed them from what was maybe 1 inch to 1.5 inches thick in some places, all the way down to about 1/2 inch. Now what this is going to do is we have literally broken down the fibers in this chicken, so it's going to cook fast. The other thing is we've actually tenderized it, and our cooking time will be very quick because this is a thin thing. About 1 tablespoon of the olive oil into the pan, so it is starting to get warm.
Why olive oil?
This is probably one of the best oils. This is the monosaturated fat oil. It's canola oil, the olive oil, even the peanut oil. It has the best, if you will, fat profile of the oils. Now, if we used a saturated fat, we would be using butter, and indeed that is an option for a recipe like this. But we decided to go to the monosaturated fat, use the olive oil, kind of give it that Mediterranean flavor, that anti-inflammatory flavor, and let it go with that.
Anti-inflammatory flavor. I love that.
Anti-inflammatory flavor.
There's a phrase we don't use every day.
No, you don't. Just made that one up, I'm afraid.
That is great.
Anyway, so we're going to be going with this. Now, what I'm going to add to this olive oil first is we have a little, about 1/4 cup of sliced green onions. We're throwing those right in. And I'm also going to throw in about 2 cups of fresh sliced mushrooms. Now, again, time saving, I was able to purchase the sliced mushrooms ready to go. If you were doing it at home, certainly buy the whole mushrooms, scrub them, clean them up a little bit, and of course, again, on your vegetable cutting board, then go ahead and slice these. So we're just going to add these right into the pan and get these going. The thing is that most fresh vegetables, very devoid of sodium. Now, again, what we're doing with this recipe is we are not cooking with any salt with this. We're using a low sodium chicken broth and the low sodium tomatoes when we get over to the squash.
And is this a good time to talk about sodium and why it can be dangerous?
Well, yeah, let's go ahead and mention that. And we're going to go over to those vegetables in just a few minutes. The sodium is getting a lot of press this year, actually. The new dietary guidelines came out, and prior to this year, our goal was what I used to call a no added salt level, which was 2 to 3 grams. The recommendation was about 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. This year, that's the top, and they're actually making recommendations that we drop down to 1,500 milligrams a day of sodium, again, related to high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. If you're over 51, if you have pre-existing cardiovascular disease, certainly that 1,500 milligrams per day is a better goal. That is less than 1 teaspoon of salt per day. So we're really asking
Less than 1 teaspoon
Less
of
than 1
salt
teaspoon
per day.
We're really moving this down.
Wow.
So indeed, that's the link. And so we'll be using Again, the low sodium stewed tomatoes, and I really have omitted the salt from these recipes. I'm going to let this saute a little bit more. It's looking fabulous.
Pass up the salt shaker. Remove the salt shaker from the table. Use less or no salt in food preparation. Avoid processed, convenience foods. Daily goal, less than 1 teaspoon of salt per day, 1,500 milligrams.
I'm going to keep on
Again,
stirring.
this is olive oil?
This is olive oil.
How
This
much?
is not quite 3 tablespoons. Again, what we're using here, and you're going, wow, she just said this was going to be low fat. We are controlling the fat. When recipes call, for example, 3 tablespoons, you can usually drop that by half to a third and come up with the same results. What we're doing with the oil here is just a medium to brown out our onions. So as soon as this oil is about done, it looks like it's getting hot.
How can you tell when it gets hot? Is that when it starts to kind of separate a little bit?
This is what I do. if I can feel the heat coming up,
It's not
I think
rocket
hot.
science.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now,
Can I put these in?
what
goes in?
I'd give it another second here, and then we're going to add those onions.
Okay.
We're going to pull these mushrooms out, and I'm going to get started with the chicken. And Terry, I think you're safe to add that onion. Let's go for it. Wonderful. We are now going to get started with breading the chicken. We're going to throw a little more oil in the pan. Keep that covered just a smidge. Now what I've done is we're just going to take a 1/4 cup of flour, and we have blended together some marjoram and some oregano, and we are lightly going to bread our chicken, and I mean lightly. This is not chicken nuggets. We want this to be just a little bit of flour on the outside to help this chicken brown. So we've got a nice flour bath going on here for this chicken. And I'm going to add a little more olive oil to this pan so we have, again, that medium to start getting this chicken sauteed. Now with those onions, we're doing the same thing. We want to keep them moving and start them to getting to the saute point. I'm using just a scant 2 tablespoons of this olive oil. I want to get that back hot again before I add my chicken. Just lightly flouring it.
And is the lightly flouring because if you get too much breading on there, it's going to soak up
the oil? It soaks up the oil. Exactly. This also gives this chicken a gorgeous brown color. I was doing this last night, and just this lovely color. So we're just going to slap this in the pan. We have sizzle on the chicken, and we are moving right along. So as this chicken is browning, again, because we flattened it before we started cooking it, it's going to shorten that cooking time. You only have to turn this chicken once. I do keep an eye on it because it is just doing its thing. It cooks very quickly.
So I don't know how much is very quickly.
This is about 5 or 6 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Now many of you, you're running around town, you're getting your errands done, you're thinking, what am I going to do for dinner? This chicken dish is supposed to be done in like 35 minutes, so it's very quick. Your key, of course, thaw the chicken beforehand, pound it out before you need it, get it ready to go. So this is a very quick type of an entree going on here. The timing on the squash is going to be about the same. It's kind of a quick thing. Now, as you know, with some squashes, that skin gets a little tough sometimes, so we are going to actually steam this squash with the low sodium tomatoes and that juice so we get that steaming action going. So how are those onions looking?
They're not caramelizing yet, as Emerald would say.
They're not, but they are looking great.
Yep.
They are doing fabulous. I'm checking this chicken as we go along. And of course, you know, chicken is not our only option when it comes to low-fat meats. We got a few more moments on that side. You know, we've got the fish out there. You know, the recommendation, of course, is on salmon. Certainly 1 time a week, a couple of ounces for the omega-3 fatty acids. Again, kind of related to our olive oil here.
So fish twice a week?
Fish, well, it used to be fish on Friday, but fish anytime. There's really no rules anymore. The one thing I am finding is we're chicken to death. We got chicken here, chicken there, chicken.
We love chicken.
We love our chicken. And let me just tell you, along that line, you know, pork is the new white meat. It's one of our leaner cuts, especially when you get those lean loin pork chops. Again, they're not very thick. They can cook up in less than 30 minutes. You know, and the much aligned beef these days, you know, there are some great cuts of beef out there that you that can be cooked braised. They're a little bit tougher, but you can braise them out. And they're very lean, but we seem to go to our white meat more than anything else these days.
Love the lean. Select lean meat, poultry, and fish. Go meatless at dinner once a week. Choose oils high in monosaturated fats, like olive oil or canola oils.
I'm thinking we've got liftoff. Look at that color.
It's beautiful.
I don't know if they can get that on there, but this is a gorgeous piece of chicken.
That looks delicious. Well, the pink side, not so much. But the pink side will turn golden brown.
It's turning golden. It's just a really, like again, you can kind of see where that lightly breaded item is just kind of letting this brown out just beautifully.
The breading really does help give it a lot of color. I think
it
that's
does
really
give a lot of
idea.
color with that. So we've got some other things there. I want to like move down here just to the end, and I'm going to grab a handful of herbs just to give you a show. So I'm passing behind Terry here. I want to talk herbs for just a minute here, and I'm going to pull some out here. How do you guys know what Mrs. Dash is? We got a lot of people, some of you guys moving. Okay, this has been around. Now, how many of you have heard of the Mrs. Dash diet? Guess what? I think it arrived at the same time. This is a salt-free seasoning. They come in several different varieties, and you can use this freely. So this is one that's ready to go. Now, you notice that we were using marjoram, we've used oregano, we've got some basil going on here with our vegetables. Anytime you want to use a fresh herb instead of salt, you can do this. Now, the nice thing about herbs is you can kind of experiment and find out which flavors are the ones you want to emphasize. Now, there are some, I call them the green ones, the herby ones. You've got the oregano, the basil, the bay leaves, the marjoram, the sage.
Rosemary?
Rosemary. Oh my gosh, rosemary and lamb. These are very meat-oriented, if you will, but again, they can go over to the vegetables. Now, what I do like to see with some of our herbs is using ones that are not necessarily sweet, but with a more subtle flavor. It's not herby, it's more seedy flavored. That sounded weird, but
no, I think you're right. The herbs are the greenery, and the seeds have a different texture and flavor.
Yeah, these are a spice, and they add a different flavor. And I'll give you an example. You can put oregano on green beans, and they're going to taste one way. But if you happen to sprinkle your green beans with nutmeg, they're going to have a completely different flavor.
I'm excited to try that.
So we've got these going. And I do want to also mention, and I'm not picking on anybody, but when you go to your market and you're looking for herbs and going, wow, look at this. It's called Cajun spice, for example. I want you guys to read the labels. You're thinking, oh, this is great. It looks like it's got hot peppers or whatever. If you were to read the label on many, many, many of these blended spices ready to go, you're going to find out that salt is the first ingredient. So let your eyes do the shopping first and take a look at some of these herbs.
Savor the flavor. Use herbs and spices to flavor foods. Read labels to assure herb mixes are salt-free. 1 teaspoon of dried herbs adds as much flavor as 2 to 3 teaspoons of fresh herbs.
All right, so let's keep going. This chicken is darn close to done. The next thing Terry's going to do is literally stir in the fresh squash that we have cut in about 1/2 inch slices. Again, the smaller the chunks, the better the timing on the cooking. So she's just going to toss all these lovely onions in with this nummy looking squash over here.
And you know, I love this dish because I grew up on summer squash cooked in southern Utah. My parents are wonderful gardeners, and they still bring me squash. As anyone who's grown squash is aware,
they grow.
It's very proliferating.
It keeps going and going and going and going and going, absolutely.
Yeah, and I also love that basil is in here. I myself has personally grown basil. I love the way it tastes with tomatoes.
A lot of
Tomato
folks have them.
soups and pasta dishes.
Just right out there in the front yard in pots, ready to go, ready to snip. I got a feeling many of them are annuals. You know, we dip down to the freezing, and some of the herbs won't make it through the winter.
Rosemary is a perennial.
Rosemary is a good one, always there for you. But if you grow your own, use them. Okay, we're going to just set that aside right now. We're going to add back our mushrooms and green onions right to the pan. And you can hear that's still quite warm.
Should I be putting this lid on here now?
And add those tomatoes. Just
Okay.
add those tomatoes, ready to go. To this mushroom dish now, I'm going to add a cup of low-sodium chicken broth. Now, indeed, you can get low-sodium chicken broth. And so we're going to add this kind of slowly because it's going to sizzle.
So we started to talk a little bit about why low sodium is so important because of blood pressure and such, but how does all that correlate? And the basil goes into?
Basil goes into it. We're just going to let the vegetables steam for a while. Literally, there was tomato juice with the tomatoes, and that mixture is going to allow these vegetables to steam to a softer texture. It takes about 20 minutes or so to get these to the a soft stage. Now, having said that, many of you prefer a vegetable with a little crunch. Monitor it. You can cook it a little bit less time. So we are literally going to pop the lid on. These flavors are going to blend. This onion, this fresh basil moves into the squash, which not as flavorful as onions. So this is going to come out as a really nice dish. And we're going to let that cook for a little bit. Now what I'm doing over here with this chicken is we've added the chicken broth, and we are literally going to let this chicken broth cook down. I want this water to cook off, so I'm left with just the chicken herbs and the chicken essence. So we're going to let this simmer for a bit of a while. We're moving along here. Our mushrooms have reduced. They've absorbed most of the chicken broth, so my flavor in here is ready to rock. So I turned this off. I'm going to keep it hot. Our chicken is ready to go. Let's take a look at these vegetables and see what's going on. So let's carefully lift that lid. Steam goes out there.
We need like a hot pad.
We do need a hot pad, and
Thank
funny
you.
thing, we happen to have those on this set.
Yeah, safety first.
Let's go ahead and give those a stir. I think we're getting really close with these. I'm going to tell you a few more moments on this. I think the zucchini could use a few moments. So let's turn that heat down just a smidge and let that simmer out just a few more minutes. And basically, we're going to spread this chicken out just a little bit better.
You know, the color that you picked.
Are they good?
Food has to look good too, and that is beautiful. The yellows, the greens, the reds. That is a beautiful thing. You put on pasta or just in your mouth.
Just a side here. We're going to take these mushrooms and onions, very much reduced at this point. And these are going to go right on top of this chicken. It takes a little more time, and sometimes that's a commodity that we wish we had more of. But think about what you're eating. Have a plan, experiment with the herbs, get into the kitchen. The other thing I'm encouraging folks to do these days is if you create a meal that turned out fabulous, it was low sodium, it was low fat, everybody loved it, write it down. Start your own journal of meals that work, because then you can go back to July 29th and go, wow, everybody loved my salmon with maple crunch or whatever it happened to have been, and recreate that meal. What is it doing? It's saving you time. It's already done. You might even think about writing the shopping list right next to the menu, and everything is ready to go.
Live well. Choose whole, less processed foods. Focus on lean meats, non-fat dairy foods, whole grains, and plenty of fruit and vegetables. Keep portions in control. Participate in enjoyable daily physical activity. And smile.
Well, Christie, thank you so much. You've just done a beautiful job today showing us what we can do to cook a heart-healthy meal. Thank you, audience, who came on your own time to smell this good food and hopefully get to taste some of it in just a minute.
Right.
And thank you for watching us. I do want to give a last final plug for exercise, and I might get criticized for making this an afterthought, but it was a cooking show in my defense. But getting out there on the trails, especially during the holiday season, walk your neighborhoods to see those glowing lights, to see that cute Halloween decorated house. walk your neighborhoods. Best thing you can do for yourself in terms of exercise if you're not sure what kind of condition you're in. Walking doesn't hurt. It's good for you. Get out there, and if you know how to run and get out on the trails, get out there for a jog or a bike ride, whatever it is. We live in the most beautiful place in the world. So thank you, Christie. Thank you, everybody else. It's been a pleasure eating and cooking with you here today. If you have any questions about this or any other healthcare topic, call the hospital's Community Health Information Center. That number is 251-2222.
Pass up the salt shaker. Love the lean. Savor the flavor. Live well. For further nutrition and fitness information, contact the Gateway to Wellness at Dixie Regional Medical Center at 435-251-3793. Christie Benton, Community Wellness and Nutrition Services Dietitian at 435-251-3789. Or choosemyplate.gov, AmericanHeart.org, EatRight.org.